evening, everybody. How are we all this evening? I hope doing well, having fun. I'm so small in that picture. What's going on? I am glad to see all of the usuals in the chat. I see Ben Nicholson is soldiering on with summer camp, and that's the World Anvil summer camp. That's their massive competition for July that worldanvil.com is hosting. It's yes, full swing from what I hear. You're on day 20, yes, I suppose, of the prompts, and yeah, I think it's a great exercise. Absolute great exercise. I see Adrian 1976 is having lunch, grilled shrimp, crawfish, and salmon. That's a lot of seafood. And I have to say, I'm very glad that I'm not there. I'm not a big seafood fanatic, but I'm glad that you're having fun and enjoying yourselves. And it's good to see you on the stream. I see we've got our usual, very unusual greeting. Noi umili supplicanti veninu davanti a voice to gnu per bacu. Anyway, Lance Pickett, thank you so much for that. It's always a pleasure reading those things, and I'm doing very well, thank you. Al Robinson, doing very well. So there you are. In the process of locking down, hopefully, an apartment. I find it fascinating how every country works differently in terms of how the letting process is run. And I must admit, sometimes you go, they want me to do what? For how much? On a Tuesday? Okay, so there we are. That seems very, very odd. So that's the process that I'm currently in. And in the next sort of month or so, hopefully I'll be moving into a new apartment and a new studio. And I think that's actually what I'm most excited for, is the new studio. So the Web Goblin and I have been working as hard as we can to improve the show all the time, as you know. And the new studio idea, that's, well, let's just say I'm excited, and I hope that you will be as well. But that's not why we're here. We're here to answer your tabletop questions. Now, I wanted to share a few things with you, just kind of going into it. I'm currently running a one-shot, a one-on-one game on Wednesday nights, and that's with Brian from Hong Kong. Then I've got another game every second Friday. That's a Star Wars game, and that's with some patrons who were around and who wanted to play. Now, that's the one Friday game. Then the alternating Friday, I'm supposed to be having with a group of friends, and we haven't been able to manage to play that one recently. But it's always fun to have these different sort of games and groups and things kind of going. Now, traditionally speaking, I would say that if you are much more techno-savvy than I am, jump onto World Anvil and keep track of your campaign and all your characters and all your notes and things, and that's what the function of it is for. Now, if you're like me, though, and you're an old dog, it means that you grew up doing it on pen and paper. We didn't even have the internet when I first started role-playing. And even when we did have it, it was so slow that it wasn't really practical for anything other than really playing internet by email, I guess. Nonetheless, what I'm driving at is that sometimes we forget why and what we enjoy about things. And for me, the other day, I bought a simple A4 ring-bound book. Because of a friend of mine, whom hopefully we're going to be doing a Kickstarter very soon, based on a ring binder book. But nonetheless, I bought this ring binder book. Now, normally it would have a plain cover. It wouldn't have this sort of leather cover, with these little brass divot things in the corners, you see. It would just be plain leather. And anyway, I bought it and then I covered it. Now, it does not work as safe. I mean, these are spikes from the divots that I just sort of nailed through the whole thing. But I have transferred my campaigns into this book. And I forgot, anyway, let me put it that way. I forgot the joy of writing and making notes. And my notes are awful, by the way. They really are. They really are awful. So here's an example of them where you can see my notes. I've got arrows. It's like this topic is actually related to this topic over here. And that topic is sort of part of that. And go and see page 12. But something that I forgot, and I think this is something that's going to be very difficult for any system online to emulate, is the fact that I pick up this book and I go, right, what was I doing in the last campaign? And when I'm reading through my random entries, I see a note and I go, that wasn't ever explored. I might want to explore that in today's game. So anyway, I mean, it's what I do. I take the time to do the covering, and then I just make big chapters in between, so that I know, okay, that's where the Star Wars campaign begins, and that's where I've got all my notes in there, and so yes, that was just something that I thought I wanted to share. And the reason why I put a cover on, as I always put a cover on, I'm still doing the design, is it just makes it feel a little bit more, I don't know, more real, rather than just leaving it uncovered. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I see some people were saying that they used cave paintings when they were first introduced to the game. Yes, absolutely. This hand, 5 monsters. Yes, something like that. Now, something that I also wanted to talk about, and I promised to talk about it in my video from Friday, as a matter of fact, are stone dice. I've got lots of dice. I do have some stone dice that were hand carved, but they were carved out of soapstone. Now, if you're not sure of what soapstone is, it's a greyish kind of stone that's very soft. You can cut it with a sharp knife, basically. So it's used for carvings, predominantly in Africa. Anyway, I was sent some dice by Easy Roller Dice, our favorite dice maker, Easy Roller Dice. They've sent me so much stuff in the past, but what they sent now, and I'm going to try and do this, I've been practicing for a few hours this afternoon to try and get this not to collapse horridly, is all the dice that I'm going to show you now are Easy Roller Dice. Now, these ones on this side, these are glow-in-the-dark dice, which are really, really cool. These are just a bag of 6-sided dice, which I absolutely love. They kind of have like this moldy cheese kind of thing, but I love the numbers. They're so obvious. But in the middle, let's just rotate that. Oh, I lost one, but that's okay. We'll get it back. These are gemstones, semi-precious. Wrong side. Let's put it there. And let's grab this one before it runs away. Semi-precious gemstones. The blue is lapis lazuli, and the brownish sort of one is tiger's eye. And they have such an amazing feeling to them. Now, the blue, the lapis lazuli is used for blue dye in fabric. So it's often used, the Egyptians used it to decorate all of their mummies and that sort of thing. And tiger's eye is wonderful substance. It comes in 3 colors. It comes in brown, it comes in red, and it comes in blue, which is unnatural. If you bake tiger's eye, if you put this into an oven, a very hot oven, and baked it for a very long time, it would actually eventually turn blue. Now, what I like about the lapis lazuli is that, and it's going to be very difficult. I couldn't get it ready to focus before, but the lapis lazuli, the edges are a little bit distressed. Where's the D8? The D8 had the most distressing. So the edges are distressed a little bit. You can see it looks like it's very, very, very old. And I absolutely love that effect. And that's just an effect of the lapis lazuli itself. It's not a hard gemstone. You're not going to cut glass with it. The tiger's eye one, because tiger's eye is very hard, it's just very, very beautiful. There's that wonderful traditional sort of gold solid honey. Anyway, you can get these. They're not on Kickstarter at the moment. They are on the Easy Roller website. And it's absolutely worth checking out. I'm going to put the link in the chat now. EasyRollerDice.com. They are also running a Kickstarter, which I would be remiss if I did not mention it, because hey, we like dice, right? So where did I put that shortcut? Do you think I remember where I put that shortcut? That's for that one. That one won't work. Nope. Anyway, Easy Roller really like us as a channel. because we promote their dice. We really like them because they, as a company, are absolutely awesome. They're really, really supportive, and I couldn't ask for better sponsors. And the dice are amazing. So there you go. I mean, you can't really screw up dice much, he said. But I want to show you these ones as well, Easy Roller, because in case you missed it, these are pretty cool. I'm going to bring this up full screen. I don't own any of these dice. I think I showed this last time. I don't own any of these. These are the speckle dice that they have. Now, they've made their goals, so they're going to definitely come out. But even though they're very, very pretty, I kind of looked at these and went, well, these kind of look almost like virus-infected dice, which is pretty cool. I like the blue ones with black. I didn't like the blue ones with white because I couldn't read the white very clearly. But it's only $10 a pack. I don't think that's very much at all. And you can get sets of 10. So it's like, I need 10 D20s, or I need 10 D12s, or 10 D10s. 10 D10s are sometimes useful. But they're very pretty. These ones work better, in my opinion, than those ones. But you can go and check those out. I'll share the link as well down below. And yes, they do ship everywhere, Jack Slater. I'll go down to the shipping costs. Oftentimes it's better to get a few rather than... and they've got these beautiful dice trays. That's what I was holding up the dice in, by the way. It was one of their dice trays. They're very, very pretty. I have this one with the sort of squid thing on it. Absolutely love it. But they do ship everywhere. And they use USPS. And it's just, there's the weights. So you can work out what it's going to cost. But they do, I believe, ship everywhere and anywhere. And to that effect, as a matter of fact, they sent my players of my Star Wars game a set of dice and a tray and a cup and all sorts of wonderful and cool stuff. They sent that to them. Some of them were in the US. Some of them are in the UK. One of them is in Poland. And the other one is in Finland. And they've all arrived. There's been some challenge with Poland and Finland, but that's being sorted out, hopefully. So, yes. Easy Roller dice. I think they're really cool. And if you want dice, go grab some. Anyway. Now, I've been missing some questions. So I'm going to go back and have a look and see what questions I missed. Let's see. Okay, so Big Goose asked the question. I'm trying to implement the Omnidroid from the Pixar movie The Incredibles as a boss-type enemy for my players. It's a robot that learns as it fights, so it will upgrade itself during battle. Continued. What would you do to convey this robot getting wise to the player's strategy as it fights and becomes more difficult? It's a very good question, Big Goose. Now, adaptive enemies do have a problem. They need to have a weak point as well. So what I would do is, first round of combat, the PCs lay into this thing, they do massive amounts of damage. Second round of combat, now all of a sudden their attacks are bouncing off of its metal sleeves, because they can see that the sleeves are busy rebuilding themselves. But what they need to also be able to see is that whilst the shell is being rebuilt, maybe the creature is slower. Or perhaps there's an opening near a certain body part that is releasing the nanites to rebuild the robot. In other words, they can see that it's absorbing their damage now. They can see that it's adjusting, but they can see a new target. Because if it's just going to adapt to everything that they do all the time, they're never going to be able to defeat it. And they're going to get very, 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 very frustrated with that as well. So I would look out for that. Make sure that there is an obvious, or maybe not obvious, you can have them make, whatever skill challenge, skill check you're using, whatever system you're using. Oh, you notice that as the thing takes damage, it slows down, and there's some computational stuff happening. It seems to be blinded on its right-hand side, so then they get advantage to hitting it from that side, but not from the left-hand side. Those kinds of things. So that's what I would look at. Watch2417 says, what do you think about making the basic idea of Stargate to a pen and paper universe mechanics? Well, they did. There was a Stargate RPG. I've never played it. I've only ever seen it. And I've always thought, I don't see why you would need to. You know, I'd look at this trend of, oh, we're making an RPG for everything that's out there. And I was actually even asked to make an RPG for a computer game, which I was starting to get into until I think everyone realized that it wasn't necessarily a great idea. And you go, did we really need an entire new role-playing system for Dragon Age? Did we need that? Or could we just have had a Dragon Age supplement that fitted with 5th edition? Maybe. Do you really want to emulate computer game computer game abilities and things on the dice table? That's what 4th edition was trying to do. 4th edition was trying to basically become WoW. They really were trying to become World of Warcraft, and that was their kind of go. So when you look at Stargate, I'd say, well, D20 Modern plus D20 Future plus D20 Past, which are open source 3.75 D&D based games, would be perfect to run a Stargate game in. The challenge, and this is what they found when they were actually making the Stargate series, was that it becomes very mundane after a while. Oh, a new world, and they're all, oh, it's medieval France, only modern day, or, so that becomes repetitive quite quickly. So when you then look at something like Stargate, Atlantis, my goodness, the brain shut down there. So when you then start looking at something like Stargate Atlantis, they changed up the theme very well. And I think they did it very, very successfully. And I think that's also why a lot of people say that Atlantis is their favorite Stargate, aside from season 1 of the Stargate series type of thing. So, yeah, but it certainly can be done. I mean, it's really, really, really straightforward to do, I think, personally. Alan Robbins says, what country are you trying to find an apartment in? Yes, I do have a tendency of moving around quite a lot. Well, at the moment, I'm trying to find an apartment in the UK. And as a matter of fact, in London, to be precise. I hadn't planned on that. But when you start looking at economies of scale, you can live somewhere outside of London. And I was planning on going to Nottingham, then I was planning on going to Reading. Those are still on the cards if this one here in London falls through. But it's like, well, if you share with one person, you can get the same size, same sort of thing here in London, with all the convenience of being in London rather than being outside. So anyway, I don't know. It's still all up in the air. And like I said, every country's got its own tactics and processes, which are very, very odd. But anyway, there we are. Let's see. Next question is looking for questions. Here we go. Telemont says, how would you roleplay a con artist? I don't want to be conning my group, but would like my party members to wonder if they can trust me or not. Why? What's the goal? So, a con artist is a confidence trickster. That's where con comes from, confidence. They have so much confidence in their product that they cause you to have confidence in them, and then they betray that confidence. If your character is a confidence trickster of others, in which case your character does it to other NPCs or to NPCs, and the party go, wow, you're a really slimy, sneaky manipulator of individuals. I hope you never turn on us. And then you start to play confidence tricks on them. You start to make them double guess. Why will they keep your character in the group? So I would be very careful about trying to get the party not to trust your character. If anything, it should be a case of saying, no, you can trust me. I'll never turn on you. Don't worry. I will always use my powers for the benefit of the group. A classic example of a confidence trickster, by the way, even though it is not necessarily a confidence con, was the character of Garrick from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where no one was entirely sure whose side he was on at any given moment, but the moment the chips were down, he was on their side. He was always on the side of the station, regardless of his affiliation. So there were some times where he had lapses in judgment, but that was a story development. That wasn't necessarily just him being an evil person. So I would make sure that you support the party 100%. Let them think that you are that's what I would suggest. Let's see, anything. Oh, okay, White Tiger 225 says, during a game in my world where events went bad and half the world died, I beg your pardon, The rest mutated, and now sapient life is in shambles with only a few city-states left that are at war with each other. What's some neat post-apocalyptic reminders of the past in a Victorian World War II era fantasy world? Well, I would say a running train. So half the world disappears, the other half turns into mutants. I would say that a steam train that still operates, the Orient Express, for example, could be quite a fun thing, that the players come across a train that's in perfect condition. The owners and several survivors live on the train. So that's one. I would say hot air balloons. Victorians were big on hot air balloons. Zeppelins, for example, were at the beginning stages of design. By World War One, definitely they had balloons and things. So I would look at something like that. Those could be quite fun. So yeah, I would look to those two things. Then there's nothing more fun than having a museum that's been preserved. There are mutants inside the museum that look like the beasts that were on display once. I think that could be quite fun. Idvidvidvid says, concerning GM improvisation versus railroading, how much should the GM count on the PCs changing the main plotline while preparing a new session? I don't think that the GM should count on the PCs changing the main plot. I think the GM should count on the fact that the plot is going to change. That, to me, is the most important thing. And the plot will change as a result of what the players do or do not do. So, the way I always try and describe how to look at it, so that it makes sense. You are a villain, and you are trying to rob a bank. In order to rob a bank, you have to break out of prison the safe cracker who knows how to crack the particular safe that is inside that bank. You send your goons to attack the prison, and you hope that they manage to get the safe cracker out of the prison. That's your plot as the GM. The player characters, however, who happen to be in the prison, instead of stopping the safe cracker from escaping the prison, they join the safe cracker. Has your plot changed? Well, the players are now working with the safecracker to do the bank job. As the GM, has your plot changed? No. Well, yes. Because your initial plot was that this mastermind was going to have the hackers, or the code breaker, safe breaker, break into the bank, break the safe, and take all the money out. Well, now the PCs have joined in. So your plot has turned on its head from the PCs stopping all of this from happening to the PCs being part of it. Is the outcome different? No. Someone's going to steal that money from the bank one way or another, and the PCs are going to be involved. So I always like to say, well, what has changed from the perspective of the bad guy in terms of their goal? And that's what will be changing and adjusting. And if you can do that, then you are absolutely A4 away, because you're then never railroading. You always have something up your sleeve. You always have an outcome, because the bad guys will always have an alternative. Now, if it's an avalanche and your plot is the avalanche falls on the PCs and they have to run away from it, and the PCs figure out a way of running away from it, that's a success. If the PCs get buried and all die in your avalanche, well, that is the outcome of an avalanche. So I think that we need to focus more on how do the NPCs in our world adapt rather than how do we adapt. Because I think that's something that a lot of people forget, is that as GMs, we are nothing. We have no investment in the game from, our plots must succeed. Our NPCs have investment in the game on their plot succeeding. We as the GMs are who cares what happens to our plots, right? I know it sounds a bit weird, it sounds a bit hippie-like, but the NPCs, if they don't care about their plot, why should the PCs care about the plot? I don't know. I see Samuel Kahn talking about the official Stargate RPG that's in beta right now. I don't know if it's official. MGM owns the rights to Stargate. And when I look at the beta that was being thrown around, I did not see MGM branding anywhere. So I don't know if it's official or not. I stand to be corrected. But there you are. Yanni Nordby says, where do you recommend making your own figures other than Hero Forge, if any? And thank you so much for your amazing videos and the PDF, the guide to epic campaigns. It's amazing. Thank you. Well, Yanni, I am assuming, or Janny, either way. Firstly, thank you for that. I'm glad that you found the book good. Creating minis other than Hero Forge, there is the Eldritch Foundry. Eldritch Foundry is an alternative. They started fairly recently, and they're offering some pretty good things, and they're constantly updating and building and bringing out new things, pretty much like Hero Forge is doing. So there's definitely that route. Otherwise, if you do have a printer and you are trying to get stuff out, head on over to, I think if you just type in free printable D&D minis, there's someone who made miniatures of all of the D&D stuff, all the monsters. And you can download those as STLs free, and then off you go. Ben Nicholson said, what happened to Nottingham? Nothing has happened to Nottingham. I reached out to a whole bunch of apartments in Nottingham, and no one got back to me, except for one or two who went, it's full. It's gone. Sorry. Bye. Like I said, each country is so different, so very different. In South Africa, if you ask an estate agent, do you have a property for rent? You will hear from that estate agent for 1,000 years after you have already signed a lease with them for one of their apartments. They will constantly try to sell you more apartments. It's like, well, yes, you've got one, but maybe you need another one. So here's 1,000 more apartments that you should go and have a look at tomorrow, and I've made appointments for you. Come along and have a look at all these apartments. You then go to Japan, and you're like, I'd like a 2-bedroom apartment. Oh, no, we don't have any 2-bedroom apartments. What do you mean you don't have any 2-bedroom apartments? Well, we don't call them 2-bedroom apartments. We call them 2 LDKs. Okay, do you have any 2 LDKs? Yes, we have 1,000 2 LDKs. Okay, can I see one? No, because we don't have any that are allowed for foreigners. What? So, yes. Okay, all right, fine. In the UK, it seems... Hello, do you have any apartments? I'm not going to talk to you. Don't know who you are. You're strange. Go away. We don't have any apartments. Very strange. If you find one of our apartments, it's taken. So just go away. Just stop asking us questions. What do we look like, an estate agent? Nonsense. Anyway, it's a very interesting experience. D&D Map says, I have a party of 3 third level characters, a bard, a wizard, and a fighter. For the boss of an adventure I'm writing, should I use a CR3 or 4 Deathlock? I don't know. What is the adventure about? And would a Deathlock fit? That's the questions I ask. When it comes to those CRs and that sort of thing, I have never been able to get those CRs to work. Never, ever got them to work. For me, personally. The bard does something strange that the wizard picks up on, and the fighters have to fight the creature all alone because the wizard and the bard have got themselves tangled up with something. And so your CR is too high or it's too low, or you only have 1 in there, and the 3 of them just beat that thing to death because you've got 3 attacks in 1 round versus the creature which has only got 1 attack. So, yeah. Personally, what fits for the end of that adventure? And if it's too low a CR, increase its stats. If it's too high a CR, decrease its power. Just stop using that, death ray or something. That's always my suggestion. Mo Pacano says, do you have much experience with Pathfinder 2? I've been playing Pathfinder for like 2 years now and saw the Humber Bundle thing. Keep up the great videos. They're very helpful. Well, thanks, Mocapano. I have played Pathfinder 2nd edition in the alpha version, the trial version, and I must admit, maybe it's me, I loved Pathfinder 1. I absolutely adored it, and I would rather play Pathfinder 1 than Brain's Gone Dead. I would rather play Pathfinder 1 than D&D 3.5. I love Pathfinder 1. I don't find that Pathfinder 2 has brought anything new to the table. It's like... But then again, I have only played 2 games. That's the caveat with that. So bear that in mind. Why am I so small in frame? I'm sitting on my usual chair. I'm using the new camera, but anyway. Okay. So that was that. Drizzt101 says, train heist needs spark to get flow. You're big bad. Don't know pieces on train. Do know there are 24 guards, including 2 rail wardens. You need cargo. Don't know which car. Crag terrain. approach. 24 guards on the train, including two rail wardens. I'm not entirely sure of the time period, but I would say, okay, well, what's my approach? My approach would be to... have the train come under attack by a whole bunch of enemies that are trying to attack the train, and once they finish attacking the train, they get beaten off by the 24 guards, of course, which is super serious, super deadly, super dangerous. Then I would have the train tracks blocked off by a giant pile of rubble, causing the train to have to stop. And then I would have those bads come back again and attack the train again. Whereupon I would then have my posse of men, who were waiting, standing by, then come in and kill all the big bads that were attacking the train, saving the train, and then asking for a ride on the train after they've cleared away the rubble. So that then gets my men onto the train and on the side of the guards. I would then slaughter all of the guards inside of the train and then start searching through the train as one goes. That would be an approach. Certainly, I would do that. If the train can't stop, otherwise it'll blow up, because that's another option. That's absolutely fine. The cargo, assumedly, is going to have a weight. So I would put a pressure sensor on the track and see which of the containers, which of the train carriages is the lightest. That's the one that's got the cargo inside of it, unless it's a giant piece of cargo, in which case the heaviest. And then I would go from there. So there we are. The Ganondorf 96 says, what is your favorite setting so far? Commercial setting? Or genre? Commercial setting, my favorite commercial setting so far is, I guess you could say, Star Wars. I love playing in the Star Wars universe. I don't know if that counts as a commercial setting. I don't know any of the commercial settings for Dungeons and Dragons or for Pathfinder. So there we are. I do my own settings. So my favorite setting would be my own, really. Braxia. I'm in the process of redrawing the Braxian. I'm looking at the map on my wall over here. I'm in the process of redrawing it. Again, for my next set of role players who will be entering into that wonderful, wonderful, wonderful world. Jack later says, what's your opinion of Call of Cthulhu and other systems made for horror? Is the feeling of horror or terror possible in a TRPG? Wow, big question. Good grief, big question. Okay. Call of Cthulhu is fun. It's fun for a one shot. I haven't ever played Call of Cthulhu for a very long campaign. And I think that's because people expect Call of Cthulhu to be miserable and to die in it, which I don't like. The D10 system is fun. And if you look at Maximum Apocalypse, which I was playing in the other day, it's effectively Call of Cthulhu. It's a D100, roll under the value. So that definitely has legs. I like that. But yes, the idea that the party inevitably is going to go insane and that sort of thing, I'm not so sure. And if I wanted to run a game set in the Victorian period or the 1920s, the 1930s, I'd use D20 Modern, simply because I think it has a little bit more scope for diversity of character. I know Call of Cthulhu has an open-ended skill system, but yeah, I don't know. That's just me. And Cthulhu, when you look at Cthulhu, it's like there's monsters in the dark. And how do you maintain that terror and that horror? Well, you build on it. And whenever I'm running a Cthulhu game, I always look to the TV series True Blood, because that series, I think they explored the absolute limits of modern day tropey horror stuff. I really think they went in all directions. They had vampires, they had werewolves, they had Bruja, they had everything. They had everything that they could in order to make that series last as long as it did. And I think it did very well. So there you are. Roll with me says, I plan to introduce a sentient item, actually two, and the players need to be attuned to them to find out the sentient. Sure. How do I ensure the players realize they need to attune to it without just flat out telling them? Well, I always start by saying you pick up the weapon, whatever it is, and you feel that it has a magical power. But you also realize that wielding such power requires great focus, training, and concentration. You think you might be able to use this blade effectively if you spend quite some time practicing with it. That's really what attunement is. It's learning about the weight of the weapon. Sorry, if I'm speaking funny, I've got a bloody mouth ulcer on the back of my tongue. So my tongue feels a little bit big at the moment. If I'm sort of slurring. So there we are. The Grumpy Games Dev says, that's the same shirt you wore last time. Are you doing a dead Aussie uniform type thing? Well, that's an option. Another option is that I only have one t-shirt. No. Another option, and this is the honest truth, I bought a pack of 5 blue shirts and a pack of 5 black shirts. And so it's a case of grabbing in the drawer in the morning going, thank you, I will wear you today. I don't know what color you are. Yeah, so it really is just that. Long and short story, all my usual shirts and things are in a cupboard which I can't get to because of the room that I'm in. That's one of the reasons why I'm moving into an apartment so that I have breathing room and living room and can wear more interesting shirts. So there you are. Because when I left Japan, I basically left all my clothing in Japan when I moved from Japan to UK. Arrived completely naked. It made the customs check really quick. I'd recommend that you don't do that. So yeah. Anyway. What am I on? I'm on 8:30 at the moment. I'm catching up on the questions. Okay. Darren McGinty says, have you ever tried playing Hero System or Champions? If yes, what are your opinions on the system? If not, what is your opinion on complicated systems? Okay, I have not tried playing the Hero System or Champions. I did play Champions online, but I think that's an MMO, and I don't think that that's necessarily what your question is. So, I have not. What is my opinion on complicated systems? I'm not a fan. If they are complicated and they slow the game down because we have to check up on stuff, I'm not a fan. So my Torg review, which came out on last week Tuesday, Torg is a fairly straightforward system. And I like the setting. And I like so there's a setting that I like. Someone asked the question, what setting do I like? I like the Torg setting. I think it's quite fun. But they're really complicated stuff. Why? Why is that there? Why not strip it down so that the all the dice, I mean, love the dice, but hate rolling the die and then checking and then checking and then checking and then cross-reference. Why? We don't need that. Don't need that. That's my opinion. Anyway. Squishy Squid says, I've 2 new players joining my game. What's the best way to encourage or help them to come up with a backstory? Well, the very first thing I would do, Squishy Squid, is I would sit them down and say, tell me about your parents. Who are they? What influence did they have on your character's life? Are they alive? Are they dead? How does your character feel about them being dead or alive? Do you still talk to them? Do you send them letters? Do they care? Do you go home for some holidays? I have a video, the 8 questions to create an awesome backstory. They start by asking the question, how are your parents and who are they and where are they from and what influences did they have on your character's life? And that just opens up so many things. So I would go and look for that video if I were you, because it's a complete video. Yes, and that's literally what I do. Any tips on how to run Curse of Strahd? Yes. Don't follow the book. I read Curse of Strahd. It was the first book supplement that I had read from cover to cover. Strahd's an idiot in the book, as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't play him like that at all. I would have him have an alternative agenda, which he is using the PCs to actually complete, rather than just humoring and looking down. I hate that approach. That's just me, though. So, Curse of Strahd, definitely focus on the stories of the people that live in Bogrovia, rather than what the book is saying. You'll have a much better time if you tell the stories of the people who live there rather than all the other stuff. The Ganondorf 96 says, how would you run a war combat encounter so huge amounts of allies and enemies fighting? It's a good question, and it comes up a lot of times. Now, I have done a video on the YouTube channel. You're on my YouTube channel, but if you head on over to How to Be a Great GM, there's a video there called Mass Combat. And what you do, in effect, this is what I do, is you have your two big armies fighting against each other, and you have your PCs fighting against select NPCs from within that army. Roll a d20 or a d10 or a d12 for each side. Whoever gets higher, they manage to inflict that many wounds in the tens, hundreds, or thousands on the other opponent, if you really want to go that far. How are the PCs doing in their combat? If the PCs are winning in their combat, then the PCs, good guys, their allies, should be winning in the combat. If the PCs are losing, then the bad guys should be winning. So that the PC's actions seem to be infecting how the enemies and their allies are doing. It makes it feel much more inclusive. It really does. So I would suggest that you do that. Just remember to type the word question in front of your question, if you please. Okay, Warren Taylor says, playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, so a great battle is looming over the city the players are in. Siege has been going on for a month. How do I run this if the players take command of the army? Can explain more. Well, look, if the players take command of the army... Oh my god, Xander the Green! It's been a while since we've seen you in chat, Xander. And I owe you a signed book. I have just realized I owe you a signed book. I might be able to send it to you tomorrow. Please remind me. Anyway, so Warren, heading back to your question. If the players take command of the army, one of the players is going to take command of the army. The rest are going to sit around going, well, yeah, do whatever you do. So bear in mind that that might very well happen. The one player is going to have a great time. The rest of the players are going to be bored. What I would suggest that you do is that I would have each of the players responsible for a specific section of the army. You're responsible for the siege equipment. You're responsible for supplies. You're responsible for this. You're responsible for that. Then you split the party up and you run little adventures for each of them where they have to problem solve those issues individually. You're responsible for supplies. Think it's easy? It isn't easy. Someone is stealing the supplies. A trail leads into the sewer underneath the city. Where does it go? Who's stealing the supplies? They're going to try and find that one out. At the same time, the person who's in charge of healing the wounded. Someone is killing the wounded before they can be healed. They arrive with a scratch and they leave dead. What's the story? And where the corpse is going. We don't know where the corpse is going. I would do it like that. I would really just do it like that. Xander Green says, my players just conscripted a small band of incompetent kobolds. My players are wanting to start an army. My players are only level 1 and now have a party of 11. Should I increase encounters? Absolutely. Absolutely increase encounters. I mean, the kobolds should be acting as advanced scouts anyway, or something along those lines, because that's what they do. Or they should be acting as giant noisemakers, in which case do the party really want to have them following along. I would have them act as distractors. If the party starts using them as cannon fodder, those kobolds should turn on the party and try to eat the party straight away. Or they should just leave. If the party doesn't respect them as part of the pack, as part of the tribe, why would they respect the party? So that's something that I would do very quickly. Okay. Jane is fine. Greetings from Denmark. Hello, Denmark. Do you prefer making homebrews using pre-mades or something else, a combination maybe? Which is the best for a newbie GM in your opinion? I will still maintain that Dungeons & Dragons is the best for a newbie GM in terms of role-playing system, simply because there is so much material out there on the internet that you can reference to see how to play it properly. Or not how to play it properly, to see how to play it. That would be my first point. In terms of homebrewing, I started making my own campaigns. We never even had... I think someone had Greyhawk as a setting somewhere in a box. And we looked at that and we went, oh, those are other people's ideas. That's nice. And then you go make your own world setting. Make your own. It's far easier to make your own than to use somebody else's. It really is, because then you know everything. And even though you don't know anything, you can make it up as you go along and build your world and learn the mistakes that you will inevitably make and learn how to adapt and adjust. And it is what it is. Okay. I will take these last 4 questions and then we will move on to reviewing some of the stuff that was submitted, some of the adventures that were submitted for the Great Library. Eternal Conrad says, how would you run a combat encounter with a giant monster in a city where the party getting to control small groups of soldiers to assist them? Once again, Eternal Comrade, the same as the answer before, have each of the, split the party up, do it, it's fun, and then you bounce between them. What are you doing? Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Combat becomes round by round. There's a giant monster attacking the city. Okay, there's lots of stuff that's going wrong. The nuclear power plant needs to be shut down before it goes nuclear. So party number 1, off you go and do that. You've got high computer use skills and checks and stuff. You go to shut down the nuclear reaction. The aquarium has been damaged badly by the creature, and so now some of the streets are flooded. And there's sharks swimming around eating people. Go sort out the sharks. Someone actually has to attack the monster. Okay, you go attack the monster. Someone has to go and get the tanks from the armory down the road. Go get the tanks from the, so split them up and get them to go off and do their own little adventures. Because if there's a group of them, one of them will take charge and one of them will start issuing orders, and the rest will be hanging back, going, "Oh, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do that." Yeah, that's my suggestion. Okay. Mateus Roma says, I played this new adventure with a new group and was just thinking about what kind of player to do something related to Elven Trance, but I can't know how to make it really interesting. How to make Elven Sleep interesting. Well, I would always describe your character maybe having a little ritual that they do before they go to sleep. Putting down a particular carpet or drawing a specific diagram in the ground that has little focus stones that they can put in the circle around them, which allows them to enter into that trance. And then I would describe them going into the trance. If anyone says what's happening whilst you're in the trance, I would talk about dreams of running through fields as a child and that sort of thing. The Ginger Doctor says, have you ever run or played Vampire the Masquerade? How do you feel about those kind of games? I am running my first game. Suggestion for playing a social with 6 players. I have played Vampire the Masquerade once, but I have written my own vampire rules for D20 Modern, my go-to RPG system. And I drew heavily from that. So I had the Nosferatu and the regular vampires and the Camarilla. I didn't call them Camarilla. I mean, it was, so I definitely did that sort of thing. In terms of running those kinds of games with 6 characters, it's absolutely awesome if you have a long game to run. Because what you do is the first story is about one of the characters. Don't ever try and give them all something to do. So start with one of the characters, and halfway through the first adventure, a second character should start to realize or see a connection with their own family or clan or house that wasn't necessarily apparent before. So once the first adventure finishes, then the second character, hopefully, will want to pick up on that thread and start following in that direction. Then you add in a third, and then you add in a fourth and a fifth until eventually you've worked through all 6 players having had something to do with their particular character. And by that stage, they're going to be making up their own thing all together, which I think is really, really, really cool. So bear that in mind. And then, as I said, this is the last question that I'm taking for this evening. Is Dimitrios says, how would you introduce players to a new setting, and or how to prevent the situation where players don't know the everyday things their characters should? Okay, well, firstly, you do what is called a primer, which is a one page, not font size 3, half-spaced, infinite-lined, a standard one-page document which says, this is my world, and in that document you should prove why your world is cool to play in. If there's major stuff, like, I don't know, the dragons are in charge, and your characters are always subservient to the dragons, or you die, that sort of thing is important. If it's on a Tuesday, you shake hands with the person on your left when you first walk into a room. But on a Wednesday, you actually shake hands with the person on your right. It's that kind of rubbish. I mean, it's lovely, and that's world building, and that's beautiful, and that's what we want. That's not what your players care about. That's not what they're going to remember. Then, when you walk into a social situation, inside the game, as the players are walking up to someone, and you know they don't know the proper address, you would say, your characters recognize this person as being a noble. You know from stories that you heard as a child that the appropriate way to address this individual is to fall to your knees, place your forehead on the gravel, and wait for them to speak to you. What do you do? So you then tell them what they should be doing, and then you let them decide if they want to do it or not. If they say, I don't want to do it, then you say, you are aware that the Lord will expect you to do it, and if you don't, it will be seen as a sign of dissent, and quite possibly your head will be cut off. If they still don't do it, cut their head off. Well, drag them away to prison to have their head cut off, and then let the other players try and intercede and say, well, actually, he's a bit of a moron. Please forgive us. We'll do something for you if you let him out of prison. So that's what I would do. Okay? So that is what I would do. Introduce them to the world by letting them explore the world, or let them help you create the world by saying, okay, you're walking into a tavern. What is the normal greeting when you walk into a tavern to the barkeep? And go. Tell me what your idea is. And let them say, oh, the normal greeting is to say, hello, my lord. Okay, from now on, hello, my lord is now how we greet tavern keepers all across the world when we walk into taverns. Make sure it fits within your genre, obviously, but that's something that you should look at. Okay, so now we will have a look at the submissions. Now, what are the submissions? The submissions were, I was looking for someone to join me in a writing team to write adventures. I have now assembled that team, and we actually chose 2 people because of the quality of the submissions. And we have now worked out the legalese. Oh, the legalese, all the contracts backwards and forwards. So much fun and so necessary. I haven't been drinking, I swear. Maybe I should have been. This is coffee. This is decaffeinated coffee. It's this thing at the back of my mouth, causing me to slur. So these were the submissions. The briefing was that a wizard tower was on fire, and the apprentice was blaming a witch for doing it, but may or may not have done it themselves. And the guys had to write an adventure based on that. So I'm going to go through some of the adventures that were submitted. They're blind. I have deleted the names of people from them, but they basically had to write it out. Yeah. So here we go. This is the one called Witch of the Diamond Sky. And it starts with a breakdown of the characters. Hellrun is a warrior witch working for the Time Dragon. Her first kill was when she was 12, and she never stopped. She works for the Time Dragon. She does all sorts of cool and wonderful stuff. And I was reading this going, this is supposed to be for a level 1 adventure. She sounds really powerful. And then you see her stats, and she's got some good stats there. Very charismatic, but she's a level 15 spellcaster. And you're going, wow. Okay, really powerful. How does this fit in? So starting the adventure by telling me who this individual is, and then giving me a lot of information on who this individual is. Okay, we need to be introduced to the dramatis personae, as they would say. That's fine. So then we go further, and we get into Caminato Rampelius. And there's a lot of information here as well, where Hellrun is it's a demon, basically. It's a demon, not too powerful, something that level 1s could take on. It could be tough, but anyway, so there's this demon. Lots of information there, and then we get Gail Naram, who is she, that's right, is kind of on the fence about magic. So that's brilliant. And then we get the Mage of the Three Scepters, and we get all of his stats, and he's really powerful as well. Okay, which is really cool. And I think that you kind of go, all right, good. So we're on page 4, and now we've got all of the stats out of the way. Goodness help the PCs if they have to fight these very high-level characters. So now we step into this. Before the game, this is an adventure for 4 characters starting at level 3. Oh, okay. The party should meet most or all of the following guidelines. The party has no powerful allies or patrons with influence in the Oyster Sea region. I don't know why that wasn't highlighted in red. It should have been. I don't know where the Oyster Sea region is. Okay, but let's assume it's somewhere in the setting. The party are strongly bonded and will not split easily in times of danger. The party are willing to have are willing to behave subtly and know that running away is not synonymous with failure. This whole sentence should be in red. The party always sticks around. They never run away. Maybe they should. So how this information is to be given to the GM, I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, then we start the actual adventure. So my initial suggestion with whomever wrote this out was to take all of this information and put it at the end, because that information is meaningless without the context of the adventure. So the mage. In the early days of summer, the winds steady, the temperatures grow comfortable, and ships take off once more across the reefs and isles of the Oyster Sea. It is a lawless place where pirates lie behind every rock, city-states collapse under their own weight, and the persecuted can find refuge in isolation. It is here that you met the Mage of 3 Sceptres, an unruly man that now owes you a small payment. I loved this introduction. Absolutely, absolutely loved this introduction. I thought it was really, 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 really cool. Totally sets up the tone. Notice now I don't have to highlight why is that in red. Okay. Loved it. We're on the Oyster Sea. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Then there's some stuff on your GMing style, which I thought was cool. Choose the setup as fits the style of your game. Discuss the details in advance during session 0. So this was really good. I'm not entirely sure it belongs here, but it was good. Reasons why the party are involved in this. This is where it started to get a little bit shaky. Zombie fungus from a necropolis. I mean, there's some good options here. They're in a tavern, which was lovely. Anyway, then this line causes the whole thing to fall apart. So, anything else that the players can think of. It's like, so why did you give us those other options? Just give us those options, and if none of those fit, then they're on their own. Anyway, the rest of it is really, I don't want to say straightforward. It's a lot of fun. These descriptions are beautiful. They're easy to see, something like that. Now, he then the fire starts, there's all kinds of chaos and mayhem, and the mage starts. He will pay them in gold or in magical items. Okay, if they agree to help him, because he can't afford to actually lose cash at the moment. Then the attack happens, and again, this is when it started getting a little bit concerning, because there's lots of discussion. This is about 45 seconds of dialogue that's going on between NPCs. So this is something that needs to be relooked at. If you're going to create adventure, if you're going to write adventure, you've got to make sure that the game master is not playing with themselves. The game master is playing with the other characters. So that's important. Some of this could be broken down into, you hear the mage muttering that he was gone for less than 4 minutes, and the place is an absolute disaster. It's burning down. Everything is wrong. He's berating the individual who defends himself, saying that he doesn't. And then there's a scream and a shout and explosions. So it's about keeping the GM's dialogue as small as possible. Then there's a demon that comes in, and that was the demon stats, which was great. I love the fact that the perception checks, it was like, well, if you got this, there's that. If you got this, there's that. There's got this. The problem with this, though, however, is that as the GM, you're now having to read this manuscript going, who got a 4? Okay, you notice this. Who got anything? You got a 7? It's nice, but I wonder if it's a little bit too pedantic. The clues, beautifully laid out, because the requirement was that there's supposed to be 5 clues. They were beautifully laid out. And I haven't highlighted anything in red, so it means that they kind of made sense, trying to set up this whole thing. Again, we've got a bunch of different options here. I think this might overcomplicate the matter, but it's not bad. Then a giant wall of text. It's beautifully written, but too much. Yeah, and then once the fire starts, I like this, that each round was keeping, there was track of what was happening and the damage that the fire was doing. Oops. So that worked really well. A lot of people kind of went with something like that when writing a burning tower. Then a huge amount of information. This was phenomenal. I really sort of stepped back and went, wow, okay, there's science fiction novels. And if you read some during a long rest, you gain +2 to an intelligence check within 24 hours because you've read a science fiction novel. I thought this was absolutely wonderful. Oh yes, so they have to go and rescue this box. The secret special box that contains the stuff that's most important and critical. And all they have to do is run down the stairs, and there's no perception check. They just find the box. Where we've had perception checks broken down to the nth degree earlier on, now you just find it. So for me, that's a disconnect in terms of anticlimactic almost. Anyway, the rest of it, like I said, there's just so much beautiful, beautiful information that's been laid out. Clearly, I don't know, is this... I want to say, I don't think it's Campaign Cartographer. What's the other one? Dungeon Painter Studio, it could be. Again, absolutely perfect in terms of what we needed to do. It tells us exactly what's going on. So I thought it was, overall, I thought it was a really good adventure. I thought that perhaps the focusing was slightly in the wrong place. These gigantic characters that were made, they are set up as nemesis for stuff way later. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of work went into this. And you go, well, did it really need to be that much work? Some might argue yes, some might argue no. But the important thing is that all of this information should have been at the end. So this was a really good one. I like this one very much. This one, we don't... Who drank all my coffee? This one, we don't have the same attention to layout. It's not a problem. I wasn't looking for that. That's why we have Martin, who's our layout and design guy. He's a genius. He makes everything look beautiful. That's his job. From our perspective, of course, is it legible? Very straightforward. The adventure is set in the small town of Ivellini. And most notable places in the city are the docks, the market, the lumber mill, and the wizard tower. Straight up, perfect. The city is surrounded by a forest, and to the west of the city sits a wizard tower in which the wizard uses as his house and place of teaching magic. The wizard is called Galawin, and he has only one apprentice named Valeris. The story will begin with the players arriving in town at night. The wizard has some errands he needs done and posted a notice looking for adventures. Alternatively, if the PC is a spellcaster, he might be interested in becoming an apprentice to this wizard. Unlikely. Ask the players what made their PCs come to this place. Don't care. They've come to this place because they are here, because you're starting the adventure here. So if this is for low levels, that's where you would go. This is great. He's posted a notice looking for adventurers. It's a straight up hook. It's absolutely fine. No problems to that. To the GM, if the players want to explore other locations, remind them that the wizard is a very busy person and seldom sets meetings with other people. Also, it's dark, so most places are closed. I didn't see that this was important. It doesn't matter. If the adventure is for the characters to meet the wizard and to engage with the wizard, he will have time for them. And who's going to remind them of this? It would have to be an NPC saying, oh, you wanted to go to the wizard. Well, you know, he's a very busy person, and so you really should go see him right now, because if you don't, well, he's just going to have to wait around until you do. Or the entire adventure is gone, in which case I'm wasting my breath. Yeah. Anyway. I struck out some stuff here just because it wasn't needed. Read aloud. The tower is 4 stories tall. There is a massive house attached to the base of the tower, and it stands overlooking the city. Its lights are lit up, and it's in really good condition. There was some extra information here that we didn't need. A small structure like a house. Well, if it's a structure like a house, then it's a house. Unless it's a structure that's not a house, in which case then it's like a barn or something else. So sometimes a little bit of editing goes a long way. If one of the PCs knocks on the door, he'll realize that the door is unlocked and open. If they don't knock on the door, the wind will open. Also, the kitchen door is opened. This was a lovely little piece of information. Absolutely lovely. Full stop would have been nice. But it's a lovely piece of information because look at that. So straightforward. If they knock, the door's open. If they don't knock, the wind will push it open. So super creepy. And who opened the door? Did anyone open the door? I didn't open the door. Did you open the door? I didn't open the door. So that I really liked. I really like that. So I like the thought processes that were going on in the design of this particular adventure. And we've got our usual description of the hallways, and then they find a letter, which is the threatening letter, which is brilliant because it allows for us to, the PCs know stuff, the characters know stuff, but the PCs know stuff too, which is brilliant. If the PCs think they know more than the NPCs, the PCs will do stuff because they think they have power. So I like that. Then it's just general describing of what's in the tower. The apprentice is a young human boy. The witch seduced and then charmed him. He was charmed and threw oil. Don't care about the language. Threw oil all around the wizard chamber. He stole an artifact from the wizard and an imp took it away, leaving by the window. So this is the entire adventure in a paragraph. That's perfect. If I read this, I'd go, right, I now know how to run the adventure. I don't know the minutiae, but I now know how to run the adventure. So that's perfect. Then we start talking about the fire growing, which is wonderful. And there's all these little imps running around setting fire, and everyone gets to fight it and destroy it, and that sort of thing. These gem notes I thought were really well. And that was it. Done and dusted in, I think it was 9 pages in total. There was, I think there were notes. Let me just double check what this one is called. This is called The Witch. Nope, there weren't any notes and that sort of thing. So we don't have any stat blocks that I could see anyway, which was a bit of a challenge because that was one of the things that was required. Oh, there we are. They're 1,000 pages down. That's right. I thought everyone had done what was required. So yes, we've got stat blocks, exactly what we need them to do. They laid out perfectly. I think these are either copied and pasted from the actual PDF or, and look at that. Firelings, it's a basic idea, but they would look more evil. I think they look pretty evil as it is. I would just maybe take away the mouth and then it's super freaky. That was nice. It was a nice little touch. And that's the bottom line. This adventure I thought was really straightforward, but like I said, I loved the attention to detail of setting the tone. It did that very, 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 very well. Some of the stuff is not necessarily important. I would have liked to have seen docks, and if they go to the docks, one of the dock workers saying, oh, you know, the wizard up the tower is always looking for work. If they go to the market, someone could say, oh, the wizard will buy any stuff these days. The lumber mill. Wizards had an unusual order for, you know, so if you drop in some clues here, then the players, if they go, oh, there's docks, so there's market, right, they're just going to split up. So that's something to bear in mind, is to seed for yourself all of these things that could possibly happen. Yeah, so this one, yeah, it was solid. It was good. It was really good. Good at tone, let's put it that way. And then finally, the last one that I will be looking at tonight before we run out of time. This one got quite a heavy hand sometimes. I'm just looking for color. No, maybe it was just the beginning. Yeah, beautiful maps. Beautiful maps. That I think is Dungeon Fog using Kaora's assets. That's why I'm taking a moment to think about it. Dungeon Fog using Kaora's assets. I love that shape. That's a really nice shaped staircase. Yes, so there we go. Very nice maps. Very pretty idea of the tower and how it would fit with the rest of the building. So that was brilliant. That was really, really cool. Nice layout where we got page numbers at the bottom of the page. So that was cool. Footnotes or things of note but not directly related to the topic of the paragraph will be italicized. Boxed text is meant to be read aloud unless specified, and then underlined will be a note. So it was great. It was absolutely great. This also assumes that they are heading somewhere else in Womani. I don't know where Womani is, and is meant to be a run and shot. So I highlighted that going, well, I don't know where that is. Thank you for the opportunity to write a mystery. It's my blah, 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 blah. It's nice for me to read and go, well, I'm really glad. I need to stop the stream. I'm really grateful that I do get to help people explore boundaries and that sort of thing. But we didn't need it there. The Mystery of Mercurial Mansion is a murder mystery taking place in a sort of Romanian-inspired gothic horror setting named Womani. Because it's a one-shot, we would say a Romanian-inspired area of your campaign, rather than giving it a name, because we don't need the name. Specifically, it takes place in Transylvania. Again, don't need that. In this setting, Transylvania is covered in a rolling fog that obscures the forest and spawns the fae and other creatures. The dominant religion is a church known as the Church of Yis, with its main opposition to the church being the cult of Basmid. Governmentally, the state of do you see why I highlighted it in pink? This has nothing to do with adventure. This is set up for where the adventure takes place, but that's for me to use in my own campaign, rather than have it prescribed to me. Important things: the area is covered in fog, and strange fey creatures move around in it. If you have an area that's covered in fog in your map, that's where this place happens. That's what you need to know. And that the creatures are less active during the day, and that sort of thing. Please read box text aloud. We don't need that, because you've already told us that we should read the box text out aloud. And so that's what we need from that. I liked it. They arrived, and there's some strange people that are already in the castle, and the mystery starts to set out. My challenge that I had was the 5 clues. How can I put this? When you're doing a murder mystery, for every step on that murder path, there should be 5 clues. So when you're trying to do a murder mystery and you're only using 5 clues in total, it becomes problematic. Because 5 clues to who the murderer is, 5 clues to the murder weapon, 5 clues to where the murder took place, 5 clues to the motivation behind the murder, 5 clues to how the murderer escaped from the scene of the crime. 25 clues, and now we're trying to do it in 5. So the idea was tower on fire, apprentice blames the witch. That was the idea. And that didn't really, to my mind, come through here so strongly. I think the focus was more on the mystery and on what was happening within the space. That was absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. Just in terms of what we were looking for, it was looking for something. And I think what it was looking for was more clues. Yes. So it's lovely. There's lots of characters that one meets. And there is, of course, Dr. Mercurial himself, who wanders around and that sort of thing. You should prepare which players should go where, or make them divide the rooms among themselves. Either way, you should prepare which rooms you are opening to the players. Make sure to leave space for 3 other travelers. Do not allow residents in the bedchamber in the tower. This is where they're going to sleep for the night. And you sort of work out what rooms they're in, and they start going through there. Lovely little descriptions of all of these spaces. You get a real strong sense of this world that the characters are in, so I really like that. Then that night, that's when they start to hear all of the sounds and the clues of the murder mystery happening. This is standard stuff, which is absolutely, and I'm not saying it's standard as in it is written in a standard way. What I'm saying is it's what we expect from a murder mystery, is that the PCs will hear a strange noise. They'll hear something that sets something into their minds as having taken place. Agatha Christie was absolutely obsessed with this kind of murder mystery, where she would write that everybody had a piece of information which they all thought was absolutely critical, and it was absolutely critical, but not in the way that they thought it was. So they hear the organ being played until midnight. So someone was playing the organ until midnight, and that's used as an alibi to say, oh, I was playing the organ until midnight. And so, yes, it was just lovely. It was just lovely the way that it was played out. These are the characters, the NPCs that join the party, and they've got some information. They're all shady as hell, and you'd expect any one of them to be responsible. I did like the mix as a satyr, a human. So that worked quite well. This was where the apprentice came in, and we're like, oh, maybe this is the whole thing. So this was quite nice. And there's a whole double deception going on. So each of them has got a reason to be the murderer, which is lovely. That's exactly what you want as well. And then slowly, now the characters, the murder occurs, and now the players start to work out who did what by working through this entire space. What I think I failed to get a grasp on was the trail of clues. So as others had laid out the clues very clearly, clue 1, clue 2, clue 3, clue 4, clue 5, that it didn't pop out to me straight away. And some of the clues I thought, I'm not sure if this will immediately be apparent to the players. And there was one thing which was a little, it wasn't anachronistic. I think the organ can play itself, which is fine if the time period is sort of from 1870 onwards. Because I don't think it was magic. I think it was actually a machine that could do it. So I think that was part of setting up the alibi. Or maybe I'm projecting what I thought was the whole thing. But anyway, it was really nicely laid out. It made a lot of sense. The description's really cool. There was definitely a lot of theme going on. There was a lot of clues there. I don't think there were enough clues there. I don't think players would necessarily get to the point where they get to. And I think the author was worried about that. And so at that point, when the reveal happens, I felt it was like, well, that you can circumnavigate all of the clues and just jump straight on that and you'll still be right. So there was that. There was some music suggestions, which was unique. No one else suggested music. Frank Sinatra's Live Until I Die is the type of music that should be playing at this point, which I think is great. I think it's really cool to be able to suggest that kind of stuff. I would put it as a sub thing. I wouldn't put it in as part of the main bulk of the work itself. Yes. Otherwise, I mean, the map is beautiful. It's really functional. Bearing in mind, and this is, I think this is the other thing, and we actually saw this the other day when we were playing Michael Kessevan's game of Through the Breach, which was effectively an 1890s Victorian sort of horror thing, which this adventure would fit into very, very well, this work here. There was one point where Michael introduced some kind of riddle. And immediately, those of us who had read a lot of murder mysteries and watched a lot of murder mysteries, immediately we started going through the crime-solving routine and started to create a timeline and work out stuff. And so when you are writing a murder mystery, it is important to know the sequence of events that took place and what time they took place at, so that when the players are putting it together, they can get that information quite freely. I think that when writing out a murder mystery, and I know I've done this before myself, and I don't think I did a very good job of it. I wasn't happy with it, but I didn't have enough time to really tweak it and change it. But doing that step by step by step, time frame by time frame by time frame, helps you as the GM as well to solidify stuff. So when you're presenting it as an actual murder adventure, it has to be critically clear the sequence of events. And I would have liked to have seen that in this, is a little summary of this happened, that happened, that happened, that happened, that happened, that happened at these times, so that it's easy to keep track of. But anyway, that's my thoughts on those. So these submissions were all sent through to be part of the Great Library. I won't tell you whom was chosen out of those. There are still some more coming up. Let me just double check on that. So I think next week will be the last time that we go through these, because we got through 3 today. So we got the, no, I've still got more. Oh, wow. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 still to go. So maybe we do a little bit more next week to get through them. And yeah, 5 more that are great. If I look at the way it works, one of them was a no score. Because they didn't submit in the right format. So that was unfortunate. And, you know, if you are trying to get into the writing space, if you're trying to get into creating material for a publisher, if the publisher says to you, write this in text document, you write it in text document. Or if the publisher says you write it as a PDF, you write it as a PDF. They will be asking that for a very specific reason. And I did that very specifically because in my last book, we had a major issue with one of the team members using OpenOffice, which generates OGLs, and a bastard version of Microsoft Word document, and it was breaking our tables. So we ended up spending more time fixing the broken tables than the actual work itself, which was unfortunate. So we kind of had to go backwards, and that caused us to lose changes and things. So it was a requirement that the stuff was submitted as a doc file, or .docx, which is the Windows file. And this one was submitted as a PDF. I can't change a PDF. I can't make notes on a PDF as easily as I can in Word, and I can't see your Word layout, which is equally important. So anyway, we'll look at those next week. Hopefully my tongue will be fixed by then. It's been getting better and better and better since Friday, but it's still not there yet, and hopefully less slurring. I hope you're finding this interesting. Should I continue going through these? I mean, the other 5, they're very good. I really enjoyed all of the other ones that were submitted. Arcane Pyre was the one. Asylum Arcanum was the other, which was quite fun. The Price of Excellence. And then the Tower of Allender. So do you think these are worth? I mean, have you guys fallen asleep? Are you still awake? Is this useful for you? Or would you rather we were just answering more questions? I can only tell based on your feedback. And unless chat has frozen, I, for one, am making a point of turning into... Oh, you're tuning in to hear just this particular feedback. Threadbare. Okay, well, there we go. So that is useful. Carrick, I'd definitely like to see more. I find this pretty useful. Yes, thank you. Okay, yes, but I would like to get back to cow versions. Absolutely, Ben. We certainly will do that. What happened to Towering Inferno? Fire on the Hill. A Visit from the Harpy. The Watchtower of Castasel. That was the fun one. Mercurial Mansion. The Witch. Os. Arcane Pyre. This one doesn't have a name. It's just Adventure Opening Scene. Asylum Arcanum. The Price of Excellence. And the Tower of Allender. I don't have one called Towering Inferno. I didn't get one for Towering Inferno. So maybe it didn't happen, didn't get to me. Let me double check my email. It all gets sorted automatically. Maybe it was PDF. Great Library. Arcane Power. Ah. That's right. Here it is here. I did not have it in the right folder. So there we go. I will add that to the list of them for us to go through. I don't know why I didn't. Have I read this one? Oh, it did not open. But it opens here. That's weird. Okay. I will go through this one. Yes, I have read this one. I did read this one. That's right. Okay, I will come back to this one. Well, we'll do it next week. There we go. We will do it next week. I don't know why it's doing that funny thing here. It opens in this one. Anyway, that's not what we're doing. So yes, I have found it. It is here, and that's awesome. And we will be going through that next week or the week after, which is whenever we get there. But yes, I hope you all have a great evening. A great Sunday has come to an end, perhaps, for some of us. Still got to go for the rest of us. Good instrument. I will take questions next week. My computer is telling me it doesn't like things. I don't know why. And now it's opening up windows all over the place. I don't know what's going on. All right. Well, we'll figure it out somehow. We'll get there. And yes, from me to all of you, I thank you all for watching, for participating. And I wish you all the very happiest of gaming.